This work is called The Shuttle, and as you can see, it includes books, shea butter, and a CB radio. CB radios were very popular in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They predated the internet, and they predated the cell phone. So it was an opportunity to call anonymously into the world and talk to people from different places and have different opportunities to be part of a conversation. As a young person, my father ran a CB radio business. And so I grew up in an environment, and I think this shows an interesting dichotomy in my family structure, is that my mother was an academic, and she was the person who would have introduced me to the Dick Gregory book. And her kind of stacking books suggests kind of teaching or an opportunity to kind of disperse knowledge to a group more than anything else. My father's CB radios and the kind of fusion that he had to technology and his relationship to calling out anonymously in the world is an enormous factor in how I decided to employ that material. A lot of my work tends to deal with kind of the domestic space. As you can see on the floor, there's certain symbols that are consistently branded into the floor, and it's a very physical process. I built a forge, like kind of a large, like hot box to heat these pieces of steel, and I would then take the pieces of steel out of the forge and then kind of physically impress them into the surface. There are a couple symbols that are consistently used. One is the kind of crosshairs are a gun sight. One of the other symbols that you see is a symbol for a group called the Boule, which is a black secret society that's similar, I guess, in some ways to Skull and Bones. So I guess it becomes a connection or a conversation about like the opportunity to think about the black character in some ways more than the problematic relationship that we often consider to have with that character. Well, I call these works cosmic slops. And so what I was kind of thinking about is kind of cosmic slop as a material or as something that you would pour or produce or use. A lot of this work is about removal more than it is about addition. The way that they're made is that this is actually laid on the ground, and I'm melting like buckets of black soap and black wax together. And then they're poured on the surface, and I'm making gestures in it. And a lot of the gestures really are about this opportunity to kind of remove the material from the surface. Like if you think about like a volcano erupting, and you see the lava coming down the mountain, right? And then it slows down, right? And then it becomes solid rock, and its new land is formed. So that kind of like that formation of land and that opportunity kind of gesture in that moment all are factors in how this work was kind of conceived as well as how it lives now. I grew up at a time where there was this kind of third wave of Afrocentrism. And my parents wore dashikis and had afros. And I always describe it as when I was maybe 13 or 14, like my parents stopped participating in that Afrocentric experience. And so I was abandoned in this space. You know, I was raised in this space, and then it was no longer a significant part of our lives. And so a lot of the materials that you see are kind of born of that first experience where we were like participating with like shea butter, and the black soap, again, kind of stems from that time as well.